Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
I was standing in the sporting goods aisle at Kmart, staring at a Wilson glove I'd been saving for since June, when Mom told me I was still 20 bucks short. I'd been mowing lawns all summer, sweating in the heat, pushing that rusty mower across neighbors' yards. Before I could even ask for an advance, Haley came running from electronics, holding a shiny pink flip phone. 10 minutes later, Mom was swiping her card for it, saying, "She's been having a rough week at school." That was my life in a nutshell. My name's Brandon. I grew up in a working-class neighborhood outside Cleveland. Dad was a machinist. Mom worked the school cafeteria. We weren't poor, but money didn't get wasted. Unless Haley wanted something. She was 3 years younger, but the rules for her were nothing like mine. If I wanted something, I worked for it. She just had to ask. Mom called it being more sensitive, but I knew it meant, "You can handle it, Brandon." She can't. By the time I was 18, I'd gotten the message. If I needed something, I worked for it. Before my freshman year of college, I took 2 jobs, stocking shelves at night and hauling drywall for a contractor on weekends to cover my textbooks. 2 years later, Haley went to the same school. My parents wrote the checks for everything. She failed out in under a year, claimed the professors didn't get her, and ended up at community college. She quit that too. I joined the electricians union, climbed from apprentice to licensed, and saved every extra dollar. Haley drifted from job to job, waitressing, retail, even a short-lived freelance artist phase. Whenever she fell short on rent or wrecked her car, my parents fixed it. My questions always got the same answer. She just needs time to find her path. Mine apparently was a solo hike. The last straw was at a Sunday dinner. Haley casually mentioned she'd maxed out her cards again and might crash with me until she figured things out. My parents nodded like it was already settled. I smiled, changed the subject, but inside I felt the same knot in my stomach I'd had since I was a kid in that Kmart aisle, watching her get handed something I'd been told I had to earn. I cleared my plate, thanked Mom for dinner, and got out of there before I said what I really wanted to. I was still thinking about that Sunday dinner when I signed the last check for my down payment 9 months later. 9 years in the trade, more overtime than I wanted to remember, and I finally had enough. The house was exactly what I'd pictured since I was 20. A 3-bedroom brick ranch on the west side, solid as a tank, big backyard with enough space for a grill, a shed, and maybe a dog one day. The mortgage was going to be tight, but I'd been living like a monk for years. No vacations, no shiny toys, just a beat-up truck and a savings account I guarded like my life depended on it. Signing those closing papers felt like I'd crossed the finish line of a marathon no one else in my family had even bothered to run. I moved in on a Saturday. My folks came by for the housewarming, arms full. Mom with 2 pies, Dad with a toolbox. We put up shelves, fixed a squeaky door, laughed over the fact the previous owners had painted 1-bedroom neon green. Haley showed up late, empty-handed, wearing sunglasses indoors like she was avoiding paparazzi. First words out of her mouth weren't "congratulations," but, "So, can I throw a party here next weekend?" "No," I said flatly, still holding a hammer. She made a face like I'd just kicked her dog. "It's just one party, Brandon." "Not happening," I told her. She sulked the rest of the night and didn't text me for a week. Honestly, it was peaceful. For the next 2 years, that house became my project. I repainted every wall, swapped out the ugly brass fixtures for clean brushed nickel, laid new flooring in the kitchen, and built a fire pit in the backyard out of reclaimed brick. Every nail I drove in, every coat of paint I rolled on, it was sweat turning into something permanent. Haley's life looped. Boyfriend, breakup, new place, dream job, then quitting over some excuse. My parents always rescued her, and even though they never took my money, watching it happen still burned. I kept my head down, didn't bring it up anymore. That house was my buffer from all of it. Then it started bleeding me dry. First, the furnace died in the middle of a February cold snap. $3,000 gone overnight. I'd barely recovered from that hit when a storm peeled a strip of shingles off the roof, and the leak spread fast. $6,000. My emergency fund was limping after that, but I told myself I could rebuild it. Then came the plumbing. I came home one night to water pooling in the basement. By the time I paid for a new line and cleanup, my savings were gone. Completely. It was like watching 9 years of discipline swirl down a drain I just paid to replace. One night, I sat at the kitchen table, flipping through receipts and bills, the smell of wet drywall still in the air. I ran the numbers twice, then a third time, hoping I'd made a mistake. I hadn't. The ranch I'd fought so hard for was starting to feel like an anchor tied to my ankle. I wasn't behind on anything yet, but I could see the edge of the cliff, and it was closer than I wanted to admit. Still, I didn't tell anyone. Not my folks, not Haley. I knew exactly what I'd get. Dad would suggest I just pick up more hours. Mom would act like Haley's rent payments were somehow a fair comparison to my mortgage. And Haley, she'd probably hear financial trouble and think free guest room. I stacked the bills into a neat pile, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and sat out by the fire pit I'd built. The yard was quiet, except for the hum of the streetlights. I'd worked my hands raw for this place, but for the first time since I moved in, I couldn't shake the thought that maybe keeping it wasn't worth what it was costing me. I tipped back the bottle, watching the flames eat through the last log, and decided I'd give it a month before making any moves. What I didn't know was that while I was weighing my options, my family was already making plans for my house, plans I wasn't supposed to find out about until it was too late. A week after that night by the fire pit, I was sitting across from my financial guy in his cramped office, surrounded by binders and a ticking wall clock that felt like it was counting down my savings. He didn't bother easing into it. "Your house poor, Brandon. You're one emergency away from a free fall." I leaned back in my chair, jaw tight. "So what's the fix? Work more? Cut groceries in half?" He shook his head. "You could do all that and still be running uphill. The market's red hot right now. If you sell, you walk away clean, debt-free, cash in the bank. It's the smart play." I hated how much sense it made. I didn't want to sell. I'd poured 2 years into making that house mine. But the numbers didn't lie, and I was tired of waking up at 3 a.m., wondering what would break next. I called a buddy who worked in real estate. "Quiet listing," I told him. "No signs, no open houses, just people you trust." Within 5 days, we had 3 offers. One came in over asking, cash, with a quick close and the option for me to rent back for a month. It was the kind of deal you only see in a market this crazy. I signed before I could talk myself out of it, and I didn't tell my family. Not because I thought they'd be happy for me, because I knew they wouldn't. My parents would try to convince me I was making a mistake. Haley would make it about her somehow. I didn't have the patience for any of it. That's when the phone calls started. Mom called on Tuesday, said she and Dad were just checking in. Same on Thursday. Then Dad left me a voicemail Friday about how the family should spend more time together. They'd never been that consistent in calling me, ever. Haley's texts were even weirder. "What's your internet speed?" she asked out of the blue one night. A day later, "Which bedroom gets the best natural light?" Then, "Could a king-size bed fit in your office?" I texted back, "Why are you asking this stuff?" She replied, "Just curious." Haley being nosy was nothing new, so I brushed it off. I figured maybe she was in one of her dreamer moods, imagining a better apartment than the dump she was probably in now. Meanwhile, I was cleaning and packing in the evenings, boxing up years of my life. My buddy dropped by with a folder full of closing documents, and I signed them at my kitchen table, the same one where I'd once celebrated getting the keys. It felt strange, like ending a long relationship without telling anyone you were even thinking about it. One afternoon, I caught myself staring at the fire pit out back. I'd built it brick by brick, thinking I'd sit there for decades. Now I'd be gone before the leaves turned. I told myself it was just a place, but that didn't stop the tightness in my chest. The week before closing, my folks invited me over for dinner twice in a row. I went the first time, sat there while they talked about how family needs to stick together and we should help each other more. I nodded and changed the subject. By Friday, Haley sent me another text. "Are you home Sunday night?" "Maybe," I typed back. No reply. The following Tuesday, I was on my lunch break when my real estate buddy called. "Buyers want to set a final walkthrough for the day after closing," he said. "Shouldn't be a problem." It wasn't a problem for me, but it would have been for my family if they'd known. Because at that point, I still didn't realize that all their sudden calls and questions weren't random. They were working on something behind the scenes. And my house, my soon-to-be-sold house, was at the center of it. The signs were there, I just wasn't connecting them. Mom's random questions about how much I spent on utilities. Dad asking if I ever got lonely in such a big place. Haley's texts about room sizes. I thought it was harmless curiosity. It never crossed my mind that they were talking to each other more than usual, probably over dinner at my parents' place, floating the idea that Haley could temporarily live with me. And since none of them knew the house was already spoken for, they were just waiting for the right moment to spring it on me. I kept my mouth shut about the sale right up to the day the deal went firm. Then I locked the paperwork in my desk drawer and kept packing boxes, completely unaware that they were about to try and move Haley into a house I wouldn't even own in a month. I knew something was off the second I stepped into my parents' dining room. The good china was out, champagne was on ice, and Dad was grinning like he'd just won the lottery. "Brandon," he said, clapping me on the shoulder a little too hard. "Glad you could make it." I glanced at the table. Cloth napkins, candles, the works. "What's the occasion?" Mom came in from the kitchen with a serving tray. "Oh, nothing special. Just thought we'd do something nice. We need to look out for each other." I sat down, already feeling the trap closing. Haley walked in 5 minutes later, looking like she'd just stepped out of a catalog. Hair done, makeup perfect, a bottle of wine in her hand. She barely looked at me as she slid into the seat at the head of the table. Mom didn't correct her. We started eating, but every other sentence from my parents was some kind of hint. "Empty rooms just collect dust," Dad said while pouring gravy. "Some people just need a soft place to land," Mom added, smiling at Haley. I kept my eyes on my plate, chewing slow. When dessert plates hit the table, Haley stood up with a little too much flair, grabbed the champagne and popped the cork. Foam spilled over her hand, but she didn't care. "I have an announcement," she said, grinning like she was hosting a game show. "Starting next week. I'm moving into Brandon's house until I'm back on my feet." Mom and Dad beamed, like she'd just said she got engaged. I let the silence hang just long enough for it to get uncomfortable. "Small problem," I finally said. "I sold the house last week. The new owners move in 30 days. The smiles vanished. Haley's face snapped from smug to furious in half a second. "You sold it? Without telling me?" she snapped. "You did this just to spite me." "Spite you?" I leaned back in my chair. "Haley, this has nothing to do with you. I sold it because I can't afford to keep dumping money into a place that's falling apart." Dad set down his fork, frowning. "Couldn't you back out of the sale? Just until your sister gets settled?" "No." Mom tried to jump in, her voice too sweet. "We could help with utilities if that would make it easier to keep her there." I laughed once, sharp, humorless. "You're missing the point. This isn't about splitting a bill. I'm not housing her. Period." Haley's hands were clenched around the neck of the champagne bottle. "You're so selfish. You've always thought you were better than me." "Better than you?" I said. "Number, I've just stood on my own since I was 18, while Mom and Dad caught you every time you fell. And now you want me to keep doing it? Not happening." Mom's eyes filled instantly. "That's not fair." "It's exactly fair," I cut in. "You made me earn every cent I needed for school. Haley asked for things, and she got them. I worked 2 jobs for textbooks. She got tuition paid for and dropped out. I paid for my own car repairs. You bought her a replacement. And now you want me to give her my house, over my dead body." Dad's shoulders slumped like someone had let the air out of him. "We just thought—" "That's the problem. You thought without asking me." Haley slammed the champagne down on the table so hard it rattled the plates. "Forget it. I'll figure it out without you." She grabbed her purse and stormed out, the front door hitting the frame like a gunshot. Mom pushed her plate away, tears rolling. "You don't understand, Brandon. She's not as strong as you." "That's because you never let her be," I said, standing up. Dad didn't look at me when I walked toward the door. I could feel the tension behind me, heavy enough to choke on. For the first time, they were going to have to face the reality that I wasn't going to keep fixing things for her. I grabbed my keys, muttered a quick, "Thanks for dinner," and left before they could try one last plea. The night air hit me cold, and it felt like the first deep breath I'd taken all evening. I started the truck, headlights washing over the front of their house, and pulled away without looking back. The day after that dinner, the campaign started. My phone wouldn't stop lighting up. Haley's texts were all caps and exclamation points, Can't believe you do this to me. You're ruining my life. Hope you're happy. My parents' messages were quieter but no less irritating, every one of them ending with some compromise that somehow still meant me housing her. Maybe just until she finds a new place. She could stay in the guest room and pay you rent. What if we cover her utilities? The answer didn't change. Number by midweek, extended family started chiming in. My aunt called to tell me about the time she let her brother stay in her basement until he got on his feet. My cousin texted about how family's supposed to help each other. I kept pointing out that those situations were agreements, not ambushes. Over dinner with champagne. No one seemed to care about that detail. I ignored most of it and kept working through my packing list. The sale money hit my account, and I shoved it straight into a high-yield savings where it could sit untouched. I wasn't about to let it burn a hole in my pocket. I'd already signed a lease on a one-bedroom loft in a converted warehouse downtown. It wasn't big, but it was open and bright, with exposed brick and 0 yard to maintain. No furnace to replace, no roof to patch, no pipes to burst. My furniture would fit, my bills would shrink, and for the first time in years, my free time would actually be free. Thursday night, I was boxing up dishes when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Haley standing there, hair a mess, wearing an oversized hoodie like she'd been crying. She walked right past me without asking. "Nice to see you too," I muttered. She sat at the kitchen table, arms crossed. "I just came to say sorry." I raised an eyebrow. "Sorry for what? The stunt at dinner? The week of screaming texts?" Her eyes darted away. "I was upset, but I need your help." There it was. "I found a place, but I need first and last month's rent," she said, like it was the most reasonable request in the world. "No," her head snapped back. "No? You have the money." "That's not the point," I said. "We both know I'll never see it again," she scoffed. "You think you're so much better than everyone now." I dropped the tape gun on the counter with a sharp crack. "No, Haley. I'm just done bailing you out. You've had 30 years of handouts and excuses. I'm not adding myself to that list." Her mouth twisted like she wanted to say something worse, but she just grabbed her purse. "Fine. Forget I asked." She walked out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. I stood there a minute, staring at the door, then went back to packing the dishes like nothing happened. By the weekend, the noise from my family had started to fade. Either they realized I wasn't budging, or they'd moved on to working another angle. I didn't care which. I hauled my first load of boxes to the loft on Sunday. The place smelled faintly of sawdust from the recent renovations, and the sunlight through the big warehouse windows lit up the dust in the air. It felt empty, but in a good way, like breathing room. On the drive back to the ranch, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "We'll talk later. There's a new plan." I didn't reply. Whatever their plan was, it wasn't going to involve me. A week after Mom's new plan text, Dad sent me a message that made me laugh out loud. "Haley's staying in the guest room here until she finds a place." I could picture the conversation that led to it. Probably Haley begging, Mom caving, Dad pretending it was temporary. But at least it wasn't my problem anymore. A couple nights later, Mom called me while I was unpacking at the loft. She didn't waste time. "It's been an adjustment." "What does that mean?" "She's not used to rules." "What rules?" I asked, already grinning. "Rent due on the 1st. She has to do chores, weeknight curfew." I actually set the box cutter down. "You gave her a curfew?" "She's under our roof," Mom said firmly. "Our house. Our rules." I wanted to ask where that energy had been for the last 30 years, but I kept it to myself. Turns out Haley fought every bit of it at first. Mom told me she argued about the rent, claimed she was between jobs and needed to focus on finding the right fit. She ignored the chore list, left dishes in the sink, came in late on work nights. But then Dad got involved. "She didn't like it," Mom admitted, "but when your father backed me up, she started to listen." Apparently, Dad told her point blank that if she couldn't follow their rules, she could find somewhere else to live. That shut her up fast. Over the next month, things shifted. Haley got up early, went to interviews, even did yard work without being asked. Then one Friday, Mom called with news. She got a job. What kind of job? Marketing. Downtown. Entry level, but she says it's legit. I raised an eyebrow even though she couldn't see me. We'll see how long it lasts. Still, I showed up for Sunday dinner that weekend, curious. Haley was there, wearing a blouse that didn't look like it had come from a clearance rack, hair pulled back neat. When I congratulated her, she actually said, "Thanks," without the usual edge. No snark, no backhanded comment. Just thanks. It was weird. After dinner, I was rinsing dishes when Mom came into the kitchen. She leaned against the counter, drying her hands on a towel, watching me. "You know," she said, "I think we might have been unfair to you." I didn't look up from the sink. "You think?" She didn't flinch. "We expected you to figure things out on your own. We thought we were helping Haley by protecting her, but we were just keeping her from reality. Having her here, following rules, paying rent. It's been good for all of us." I set the plate down and finally met her eyes. "So what, you're saying I was right?" A small smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. "Don't push it." For a second, I almost believed her. But then Haley's laugh drifted in from the living room, and I reminded myself that 1 month of playing by the rules didn't erase years of being carried. I dried my hands, told Mom I'd see her next week, and left before the glow of her little confession could fade into the usual excuses. By spring, Haley had scraped together enough for her own place. A 1-bedroom in a mid-range complex, nothing fancy, but clean and close to the bus line. She gave me a quick tour over FaceTime, pointing out the little balcony and the huge closet like she'd just bought a penthouse. 2 weeks after she moved in, she did something I never thought I'd see. Handed me cash for the $50 I'd fronted her for a car repair. No excuses, no, "I'll get you next time." Just a folded bill in my hand. I didn't make a big deal of it, but I noticed. My parents shifted too. There were no more last-minute calls asking me to cover Haley's rent or help out just this once. They'd stopped acting like I was the family's backup generator, ready to kick on whenever she shorted out. We weren't suddenly a Hallmark movie family. Dinners were still peppered with old habits, Mom trying to smooth over tension, Dad clinging to neutral ground. But it wasn't the constant push and pull it used to be. By summer, I was ready for my next move. I found a modest 2-bedroom townhouse on the edge of town. Affordable, low maintenance, and just enough space for friends to visit, but not enough for anyone to temporarily move in. I signed the papers without hesitation this time. The first night I slept there, I sat in the living room surrounded by unopened boxes, drinking a beer and listening to the quiet. No furnace dying, no roof caving in, no phone buzzing with someone else's crisis. Just my space, my rules. In September, Haley texted me out of nowhere. "Never thought I'd say this, but thanks for not letting me move in. Needed the kick in the pants." I stared at the screen for a second, then laughed. Not a bitter laugh, an actual genuine one. For years, I'd thought keeping the peace meant saying yes. Turns out it was the opposite. Boundaries didn't just save me, they forced her to grow up. And the peace I'd bought myself? Worth more than any dream house I'd ever pictured.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.